Welcome back to another installment of my reading through the Ghost Theater by the best bassist any band ever had, Matt Osman of the legendary Suede. We're on chapter 15 now. Last chapter was pretty exciting. They really got themselves into some trouble. It's had some interesting themes. I honestly like reading through it. I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm seeing how it kind of ties into a lot of their imagery and, imagery and kind of ethos as a band, especially like their early stuff. They were really big in that kind of like, I don't know, pretty boy androgyny in the early 90s. So they've grown up a bit since then, but, still seems to be influencing their psychology a bit. And the stuff about the birds, I mean, they've had some interesting use of bird sounds and themes in their music as well. So I'm enjoying kind of seeing it as part of like connected to the music, which is fun for me anyway as a fan. I don't know if any fans will find this and watch it, but as for myself as a fan, I've definitely enjoyed delving into this book and I guess getting more Suede. Yeah, it's more of my Suede fix, and the imagination that the band's always given me. So yeah, we'll get started. Shout out to Gangster Ghost and New Guy, who are both in the chat. Nice to see you both. But yeah, I'll start reading. That was a good introduction, I feel. Okay, so chapter 15. It was the first thing that Shay saw as she disembarked onto the Broken Wharf. Onto Broken Wharf. That's the name of the wharf. Where the ships dock and such. She hardly recognized herself at first. The poster bore a crudely drawn portrait. The subject was cross-eyed and leering, but the twin tufts of hair and scribble of tattoo could only really be her. She stared at it for a moment before thinking to read the text below. It read, Flapper Shay, wanted, destruction of property, arson, injury. Hi, Christ Conquerors. Welcome to the chat. She looked around her. Collars were up and hands were in pockets. The cold had everyone scurrying. She tore down the poster and crumpled it into her bag. As she walked, it felt as if everyone were looking at her, and she pulled her cap down lower. 2 minutes later, she saw another poster. It was in a shop front, and there was no way she could get at it. She crossed to the other side of the road and kept her eyes lowered. A few yards on there were 3 in a row, glued to a tavern wall. Wanted, wanted, wanted. She tore at the corners, but they were glued fast, so she ripped strips from the eyes and hair and then looked for an escape route. She couldn't bear being at street level anymore. There was a ladder propped against a wall of Barclay's Inn, and she climbed it up onto a peaked roof. Cracked tiles made it treacherous as ice up there, but at least there were no more posters, and it was an easy route north across the rooftops to the theater. Hello, Tomas. Good to see you again. Yes, we were both in Missing Mod's chat today. Hello, Nicholas Woodall. Nice to see you as well. So, this is frightening, honestly. I'm kind of worried about this Shay. Like, the stunt she pulled was, it was incredible, but I don't know how she's going to get away with it. I mean, how many people look like her? She has, this really bizarre haircut, and her hair is very short anyway. So she, from what I gather, I mean, what I'm imagining of her I'm imagining she has something similar to a bihawk. Has anybody ever seen a bihawk? Maybe I should like pull it up for reference to show what I'm like imagining in her hair. But you know, like, yeah, here we go. Yeah, like the guy from Prodigy. That's right. There we go. Oh, Lord, these are embarrassing. Well, let me share this for a second. I'm imagining she has a haircut like this, though, or some variation of it. I mean, I imagine it's not so, you know, not dyed ridiculously. You know, it says she has blonde hair. And I doubt she's like spiking it up in any sense. But yeah, here, let me look at the images. That might be better. Okay, yeah. So okay, here we go. This is, yeah. I'm imagining she has something kind of like that, only it's not, you know, really spiked out, and that she's got this tattoo on her head. So she's very, you know, easy to spot, and it's not like that kind of hair can grow out quickly. I mean, give it a few months, she could, you know, grow her hair out and, you know, hide her tattoo. But like, even if she shaves off her hair, what's she going to do? I mean, I guess she, you know, because of the theater, she could get into all kinds of costumes and such, but like, it just sounds precarious. And I'm like wondering where this is going. And are they going to cause the Great Fire of London or something? Like, is that where the story is going? Anyway. Anyway. Did I pull it up? Did I even share that, guys? Oh my. Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay. To her surprise, 4 figures waited on the theater roof. Blank and Trestle looked sick, None Such amused, and Alouette furious. She had a pile of torn-off wanted posters at her feet. None Such slow clapped as Shay pulled herself up over the ledge and said, "Destruction and arson, I am wildly jealous. Though I'd sue over the portrait. I'm going to petition Gilmore to have Trestle do a more flattering one. You know it reflects on me, too." He gave her a wink and then reached out a hand to clasp hers. "I'm sorry, I don't know how he worked out it was you under that beard." Hello, John Frederick and Golden Rule TV. Nice to see you both in the chat. Okay. Alouette butted in. "I took down a few, but they're going up faster than I can get to them. Gilmore's men are pasting them all over town. Of course, it doesn't mention his name anywhere, but the street kids will know who is after you." She smoothed out one of the posters and stared at it. "We were talking before you got here. One of us can be with you at all times. None Such will pick you up in the morning. I'll stay with you while you're at the theater, and Blank's offered you a cot on his boat. We'll draw up a rota for the rest of the company." Shay's heart swayed. She could barely hear what Alouette was saying. They would protect her. But more than that, it hadn't occurred to them not to. Not once, she thought, had anyone loved her as much as she loved them, and she ached to be able to show them a similar kindness. Ugh. Well, New Guy was here. New Guy's new. Although he's not as new as he once was. He's new until there's somebody newer that shows up. Once there's another New Guy, it's over for you, New Guy. I wonder who the new guy will be. Blank had been quiet until then, but now he spoke up. "I actually have an idea about how I might fix this." He held up his hands against the other's questions. It will need some organizing. I'll need Alouette and Trestle and a couple of hours off. You might have to do tonight's performance without me. Once he'd left, none of them was inclined to go back downstairs. None such paced the roof's edge and then sat back down to undo a cloth that was wrapped around 4 cooked piglets, lacquered with fat, which a stage girl had brought for him that morning. The 4 of them sat in silence and ate until they were stupefied and greasy, with bones scattered around them like hawks in an eyrie. Or eyrie. I'm not familiar with that word. Eyrie? What's an eyrie? Hello, Zenny. Have I heard of the TV series Hwarang? No. Or Hwarang. I have not. Okay. Okay, so it's spelled 2 different ways. A large nest of bird of prey, especially an eagle, typically built high in a tree or a cliff. People also ask, is it eyrie or airy? Okay, so eyrie is the how is it pronounced? It doesn't show how it's pronounced. I'm confused by this word. So the spelling is different in British English. Okay, so it's airy.
Airy.
Airy. Okay. All right, y'all. I love when I get to learn my new words, don't you? He made an account called Another New Guy. Oh dear. What an interesting shtick he has. Okay. 4 whole hogs. That poor mare will get a flogging if she's found out. I hope that you at least gave her tickets for tonight. Alouette had eaten less than the others, only picking at the whitest meat. She leaned back to catch the sunlight, and a faint down glowed on her arms and face. None such said, I couldn't even if I had wanted to. We were sold out for weeks. Trestle was buried deep in a second carcass, gnawing away with the kind of concentration that Shay had only seen in those who'd gone properly hungry before. When even he lay back with his hands across his swollen belly, there were still 2 glistening carcasses left. What a waste, said Alouette. Shall I give them to the boys downstairs? Just a day ago, Shay could have taken one home for her father. It would have been a rare treat. There was someone else, though. Could I have one? She asked. Of course, take the pair if you want. No, one's fine. Watch. She scanned the sky. Swifts hunted insects and pigeons bunched and flitted from rooftop to rooftop. Crows pulled moss from tiles, and a whole realm above the hunters played. Falcons, 3, no 4. A pair was corralling some rooftop rodent to its doom, and among them, leaning against the wind like a thug leaning on a carriage door, there was Divana. We remember Divana, the falcon that she freed from the lord who tried to pay her less for her services. And now it appears that Divana has made her home in London. How exciting. And she hunts there. Shay brushed herself down, stood, and cupped her hands around her mouth. Her first attempt was little more than a croak, but the second was better, and it set the crows barreling away in alarm. She had everyone's attention now. One last call. Divana circled, a tilt of the head, and her spiral tightened a degree, but she made no attempt to descend. Don't make me beg, Shay laughed. The others watched, unsure of what was happening. She tried the cry again, and Devana made 2 more circuits. Lazy, nowhere to be. Then there was the merest wing tuck, and the bird fell into a long banked curve, growing rapidly like a horse cart coming too fast towards you. Shay stood and raised her arm, and Devana didn't make the slightest adjustment to her path. She arrived in silence, with wings braked against the air, and both talons took Shay's forearm at once. Contemptuous eyes swept across the rooftop. The familiar weight of her, lighter than she looked, but stronger too. "Don't look her in the eye," she whispered. Devana's presence was, as ever, a miracle. She made herself comfortable on Shay's arm and gave one last stretch of wings. "Behold the bird," before she settled into groom. Nonesuch couldn't take his eyes off her. "Oh, my saints, she is beautiful." Without taking his gaze from the falcon, Trestle reached for his paper and pencil, and with his mouth opening and closing like a fish's, he began to sketch. For a split second, Devana focused on the pencil nib that scratched like mouse claws, and then went back to her feathers, satisfied that it was nothing she need kill just yet. Shay held up a piglet leg. Instantly, Devana had it in her beak. She tossed her head left, right, left, before gulping at the flesh. Shay revolved the bone, and the bird did the same thing again. She tilted her head to one side and picked a precise strip of flesh from the bone. With a flourish, she threw it into the air, caught it in her beak, and then swallowed it whole. Her eyes latched immediately back onto the meat. "Show off," whispered Shay. Twice Devana rolled her gaze around them. Twice more she tore and swallowed, and then, with a gentle squeeze of claw, she let Shay know that she was done. She folded her wings into a soft M, and without warning, she was gone. 3 ponderous, thoughtful wing beats, and she dipped below the eaves and then up over the city. "Keep watching." There were other birds of prey up there, but none moved quite the way Devana did. There was a hint of the theatrical in her cliff-edge dives and vertical turns. See how you'll recognize her." Nonesuch nodded. "She's like an assassin." Devana curled again and disappeared below the line of buildings. It was as if they'd all held their breath. Nonesuch and Alouette were full of questions. "When did you learn to? Does she always come?" As Shay tried to tell the story of her and Devana, how she'd known the falcon as a fledgling, when it was just a riot of feathers and gaping mouth, how they'd grown together, explored together, feral kids with London laid out beneath them, and how, when she pictured herself, it was through Devana's eyes, a rodent figure running across the carpet of the city. When the other 2 were done with their questions, Shay went to sit beside Trestle. His drawing was a sketch of Devana's head, a gleam of eye under heavy lids, a river of feather tips, and a beak sketched in 3 sharp lines, a liquid knife. He kept his voice low with his eyes on the drawing as he said, "Now I understand, Shay. That's what you worship." Okay, so it's a story. The show is called Hwarang, the Poet Warrior Youth. It is one of the highest rated shows of all time, and I am keen to watch it. Korean history is complex and immersive. Yes, it is. It's a fascinating nation, isn't it? Really a tragedy how it's turned out. Well, I don't know. Yeah, let's not speak that into existence. We love our Korean. They're going to figure it out. They'll figure it out. What seems to be hopeless will be made right again. Okay, so let's see. The afternoon's performance was sloppy and nervous. Pavey stood in for Trussell, and none such as Dr. Faustus prowled the front of the stage, only inches from the prompter's box. When was Faust written? Is it that old? I didn't think it was, I thought it was older, or I'm sorry, I thought it was newer than that, because this is supposed to take place in 1601. Okay, so, okay. Oh, okay. Okay, so it was published by then. What year was it published, though? I'm curious. Well, I don't know. What? Yeah, I'm confused. I've read the one by Goethe. I'm confused. Okay, so this is saying it was published in 1808, but the story is older than that. I suppose I don't know. So I suppose the character was around a long time, but I don't know. Hi, Kale Samogi. Okay, let me get back to the story. Sorry. I get too caught up in that, I'm reading it and I'm like, they didn't have tea. And I'm like, when was Faust published? my bad. My bad, y'all. Okay. Okay, none such as Dr. Faustus prowled the front of the stage, only inches from the prompter's box, worried that with the others gone, there was no one to keep an eye on Shay. But Shay felt untouchable, Devana above her and her friends all around her. None such kept his performance casual, but he made one of the more loving speeches directly into the gloom that surrounded her. She blew him a silent kiss. Even the curtain call was brief. None such and Pavy took a single bow each, and they were wiping the makeup off before the applause had died down. Usually she hung back when he left the theater, leaving him to flirt with the stage door crowd. But tonight he took her arm and guided her out alongside him. Out into the dusk, candles just being lit and farmers driving unsold livestock back toward the gates. At every step, Shay expected the sound of a carriage or the howl of the wolf dogs. They walked north up Blackfriars toward the city walls. The crowd blocked Shay's view, but none such was up on tiptoe. Shit, he whispered. They didn't get rid of the posters. I actually think there might be more. They pushed through the crowd to find posters papered across virtually every inch of the wall, plastered in sloppy groups, edges peeling from slapdash gluing. They shone a milky white in the dusk like mushrooms that had just sprouted. Shay felt sick. Worse, she felt surrounded. Is that Rouge? Tomas. What did I put? I didn't use proper blush today. I guess it would be kind of a rouge-like product that I used. Tomas, I like to wear makeup. What can I say? I'm a bit theatrical myself. Do you like it? There was no escape from them. The columns that guarded Ludgate's route out of the city fluttered with hundreds more. Nonsuch wrapped an arm around her. I don't understand what Blank has been doing all day. Shay kept her eyes on the ground. The dazed detritus was ground into the mud at her feet. Oh, wait, look, though, said Nonsuch. He pulled Shay into a shadow of the wall where there was a spray of bills. The top one was a lively caricature of Nonsuch, in which he was all curls and eyebrows. Beneath it, in the same hand as her wanted poster, stood the words, Lord Nonsuch, wanted, devilry, heartbreak, sedition. You can be wanted for heartbreak? I guess it was a crime to be a heartbreaker back in the day. I mean, it's still a crime, isn't it? Sometimes it's unavoidable, though. Press 1 if you've ever broken any hearts. According to women, yes. Oh, yes, it can be. It can be utterly devastating, Tomas. It can be utterly devastating. Look at their manner of conduct. There is that old saying that hell has no fury like a woman scorned. So yeah, women do tend to act inappropriately when they feel that they've been slighted. Yes, it's unusual for a woman to not take it badly or act out in some way. But it is what it is. We are fragile creatures. What can I say? My friend, I discussed that with a friend of mine years ago. I was like, I felt bad. I was like, I think I've broken some hearts. And she was like, yeah, but they deserve to be broken. And then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, you know what? You were right. So sometimes it just needs to happen. There's nothing you can do. People are delusional out here, they really are. And they fall into very insane emotions that they have no business falling into because, I don't know, I think they're desperate to feel loved. And so any kind of attention from an object of their affection, drives them wild. And hey, it is nice. It is nice to, feel that someone likes you. And when it is not the case, it can be quite difficult to contend with, or when somebody, leads you to believe they feel that way, or, whatever. All kinds of people are out here acting all kinds of devilishly. So yeah, Lord Nonsuch, wanted, devilry, heartbreak, and sedition. Well, if I were back, then that definitely, they could have locked me up for those things. Flanders Alouette, wanted, magic, whoring, and enchantment. Yo, they really went there with poor Alouette. Alouette. The two lone blanks, rakish under a tricorn hat with a list of crimes that included embezzlement and thievery. And across the bottom, a bold message in thick black letters, a message that adorned all the other posters, even the few flapper shays that still remained. Welcome to the Ghost Theater, secret location, coming soon. Now everywhere that they walked, from the walls of St. Paul's Church to the river, the four faces stared back at them. The flapper shay posters were lost in a blizzard of words. Nonsuch was almost running with the excitement of it all. The Ghost Theater. Welcome to the Ghost Theater. I like it. Blank must have thought of the name. Alouette doesn't have the imagination. He stopped outside Cole Abbey and took Shay by the hands. The faces of their friends looked down on them from the church walls. He said, "It's happening. We have to do this now. It's beginning." Churches had the best handholds, gargoyles and crenellations and architraves and waterspouts. None such bent her over, helped me up, swinging with laughter, racing each other up the walls until they were hand in hand on the rooftop looking out over half the city. He raised her hand like a winning boxer and bellowed up into the sky. "We are the Ghost Theater." Okay, so it sounds like Blank spent the day making a bunch of wanted posters for other, people who would be appearing in the Ghost Theater. This is interesting. I do like the idea of like this. I don't know what you would compare it to exactly, but like a spontaneous, interactive theater that, is like a guerrilla theater almost. I do love this concept. It's beautiful, honestly, to think of these like 17th century, like teenagers running around London and making all these, insane kind of scenes and causing disruption and bringing the regular folk into their like make believe. It's exciting, isn't it? But this stuff is good in stories, not in real life. It's all well and good for stories, but do not do this. It is unwise. Although, I mean, a tamer version could be had. I remember when I was in San Francisco, I attended an open mic that was really kind of exciting. That was at one of the, I think it was the 18th and Mission Street BART station. Is it BART that's in San Francisco? I think so. And that was fun. That was really lively to have it like out in the like, at the top of the station, like all these different people from different walks of life doing different performances, or I don't know. It would be fun to have more of that. Organize more of that. I don't know why we don't have something like that here, like an open mic that happens every week at the same time out, in public that anyone can participate in. I mean, wouldn't that be special? I don't know. Portland could get pretty weird with it though. I mean, San Francisco is pretty weird too, but I remember like the Occupy times and how awful it got quickly because they had all these different like rules of conduct, and they would, somebody would speak and everybody else would like say what they said out, again to kind of like echo what they were saying. And they would, I don't remember the exact words they used, but I remember being really irritated because it really did slow everything down. Does anyone remember also they didn't clap? They did like these fingers, sparkle thing. They would like raise their hands up and do like fingers like this because clapping is, I guess ableist or something. Like this isn't ableist for some people, I mean, like that, for people who don't have hands, this is pretty ableist, isn't it? Right? Hi, Chris. Welcome to the chat. Okay. So that was chapter 15. Chapter 16. None such alouette, blank and trestle, acting lights, music and sets, fire, air, water, and earth. The four of them were the knot at the center of the theater's tangle, and every thread led to them. And deeper down, pulled tightest of all, was the secret of the Ghost Theater. What was it to be? None such wanted stories, real stories without gods and demons and sorcerers, where people just like you and me lived, laughed, and died. A first rule, no scripts, just tales dragged up from their dark places. It meant that their rooftop rehearsals sounded like confessionals. Tell me how it felt. What did they do to you? And they each told their stories that had never seen the light of day before. Oh God, this is going to get crazy. Imagine a bunch of teenagers confessing all their secrets to one another, and they're like in this clandestine ghost theater. Oh my. Theater kids are a mess anyway. I mean, just imagine like, yeah, because, okay, y'all know in high school, the kids that were really into theater were always like a mess, like they just seem to be like just dramatic, a lot of, I mean, that's common of actors and actresses. If you're to be a performer of any kind, you do need some level of drama to your character. But you know what I mean? Like, I just remember they were like, I don't know, sexually active, like before a lot of other kids were, and just like getting into, different kinds of mess, like just, I don't know. Am I wrong here? Not all of them, obviously, but there were always like a few. Like, I remember there was this couple in my high school that was like, they went out for most of high school, which is nice, but they were like, their PDA was off the chain. Like, they were always, like, they were clearly doing it. You know what I mean? Because they were just all up on each other all the time. They were obsessed with each other. It was gross, like, honestly, when I think about it now. So when I think of theater kids, I kind of think of that weird, gross couple. Oh, anyway, let me get back to my story. Okay. But yeah, God, imagine all the theater kids getting together and like confessing to one another. I mean, I did some theater. I was part of like a theater production group in middle school. That was pretty fun. I did learn some things there, and we did some like performances and plays and that kind of thing. I had a good time. I learned a lot from it, but I didn't want to do theater, like as an ongoing hobby. But it was good for a couple years. Had fun with it. Okay, let's see. When Shay was among them, she felt elevated. When she spoke, they listened. But whenever she had a rare moment to herself, she was overtaken by a fear of becoming ordinary to them. She worried that she would exhaust her scant reserves of novelty. She set a rule: no more than 2 nights in a row in Nonsuch's bunk. She would not become a fixture, even with Gilmore looking for her. She was freer than any boy at the Blackfriars, and they both envied and celebrated her for it. So she still ran messages in the mornings, returning with gossip and the chilly air of the rooftops to spice the stew of the dormitory. And on the coldest night, she slept at blanks under piles of costumes in fur and cashmere, stupefied by both the slow tick of the ship and the smoldering spice bundles that warmed every corner. Blank himself kept erratic hours. He was in and out at all times of night and day, silent in the daylight, but garrulous in his sleep. Okay, I'm not familiar with this word either. Garrulous. Dang it, Matt. Matt got me learning all these new words. Ugh, come on, phone. All right, what does this mean? And am I pronouncing it correctly? Garrulous, excessively talkative.
Garrulous.
I pronounced it correctly. Garrulous. Excessively talkative, especially on trivial matters. Okay. Interesting. I've met some garrulous people in my day. Anybody met any garrulous folks? Okay. Now, where was I? Garrulous in his sleep. Okay, so he talked in his sleep. God, that must be people who talk in their sleep, man. Oof. The pair fell into a largely mute, comfortable friendship that was blessed relief after the tumults of the dormitory. But in the main, when she wasn't at Blackfriars, she slept on the roof of Eltham House. She curled around the furnace of the chimneys, which never seemed to cool, what with the last roastings of dinner and the first bakings of the morning being so close together in a house that size. Devana took much coaxing down the first time Shay slept there, circling lower and then away, time and again, a caution unusual in a bird now accustomed to doing exactly as she pleased. Her mews stood cold and locked, and the chimney was a good 10 yards away, but still she eyed her former home like it was some predator. Their courtly dance took an hour, and it was only when Shay blanked the bird and curled herself cat-like around the brickwork that Devana landed with a sound gentler than snowfall. How many nights did the pair spend there? Enough that Devana's talons wore grooves into the handrail where she always perched, looking haughtily down over Shay. How nice to have a guard falcon. Wouldn't that be sweet? Enough nights that Shay had time to polish and mend all of her Jessies, so Devana wore lilac leather in the skies, like a knight with his lady's handkerchief. Enough nights that Shay recited every one of her ghost theater lines to the bird, her haughty incomprehension lessening the stage fright somehow. How Shay loved the noises Devana made as she groomed, those oily complaints and smothered caws, the rounded riffle of her tail folding and the scritch of beak under wing. They worked like a sleeping draught on her, but when she woke, Devana was always gone, like Blank was always gone, like her mother, too, and it was the smell of the first loaves baking 100 feet below that woke her and drove her out onto the rooftops. How interesting. It was on one of those post-Devana walks, feeling stiff and cold and spurned, that Shay found what she'd been looking for. Oh, pardon me, my computer is sending me a little update. Okay, we're good, y'all. We're good. Okay, so yeah, she found what she'd been looking for, a place for her and none such, somewhere away from the claustrophobia of the dorm, where for once he would only have one pair of eyes on him. She'd been searching for one of those grand houses whose owners decamped to a country home in the months when London stewed in its soup of smoke and sweat. Grand enough to have the kind of expanse of bedchamber that she wanted for them, but not so grand that a skeleton staff would be left to tend the place. One caught her eye, Ivy Bridge House, directly en route between Westminster and Newgate, a path often beneath her feet. 3 days in a row she passed it and saw no sign of movement. A high-up end window showed her pale linen and pale wood and a 4-poster bed as fussily white as a wedding dress. The security thinned as the stories rose. On ground level, there were arm-thick bars over millioned windows, forests of locks and grates and fences and spikes. But by the 4th floor, it took her an eye blink to force a roof hatch, and she spent an entire morning walking the rooms like a ghost, listening to her footsteps shrink and grow huge as she scoured the kitchen for leftovers. She brought none such the very next day, fresh from rehearsals, with him in a cloak and a scholar's hat, and her in her blackout suit. In through the hatch and then quietly to the bedroom. The pair of them, suddenly shy, gentle as cats, shuffling around the 4-poster with eyes sliding from each other, hands reaching for hands. In the end, the bed was too soft, too forgiving for anything but sleep. So instead, they F-worded on the floor. Oh my. Thankfully, he's not too graphic. He positioned her gravely, there and there, a little bit lower, with her on her knees as his cloak enveloped them, and they giggled. Ooh, on the floor, on your knees? Dang, ouch. Playing like kids under a sheet fort. It was good, quick, uncomfortable but not painful. With his hands, he moved her, repositioned her, showed her what he wanted in the way he did with his words on stage. From behind, holding her like you might a sheep about to be sheared. Then again, him on a chair, her astride him. Better this time, though a row of family portraits scowled down on her until she stuck her tongue out at them, closed her eyes, and stayed that way until he was done. No watching eyes and no chatter of boys through that ratty old rug. It felt like another first time. After she cooled and dried, she looked at her nails and feet and thought about all the places he'd touched. She wanted to paint them on her from head to toe, those spots where he lingered, her clavicle and the dimples of her back, her neck from shoulder to ear, the softest skin of her inner thigh. She imagined tattooing them black each time until she was a statue in jet. None such woke to the 3 bells, looking stupidly, uncomplicatedly happy. We have an hour, she said. She wanted to explore, the house or him, either would do. He kissed her on the spot on her scalp where the sparrow's beak came to a point and whispered, "How would it be if you were to leave me here just for a half hour?" She tried to hide her confusion. Was this part of it? Some universally acknowledged male need that a flapper girl had never been educated about? Oh my. He stroked her neck. How often are you alone, Shay, without another person in sight? She thought about it when she rode herself to work, out on the marshes. There were broader rooftops out east where she was the only figure for miles. Sometimes, not a lot. He talked into her ear. I can't remember the last time, when I was a kid, I guess, lost in the woods. To be in a room on my own and not a word of chatter. It would be something. It was hours later that he returned to the theater, but he brought something for her. Something he'd found in a jewelry box stuffed halfway up the chimney. He said, people always think they're being clever hiding things there, but they'd be better off leaving them out on the dressing table. That's the last place I'd bother to look. It was a skull earring, coral maybe, painted in black with a kind of dark jauntiness. All through the winter it was the same. Shay would find them an empty place, and they'd make love in whatever costumes they were already wearing, and then she would leave, alone and dazed, across the rooftops, and him alone too, spread-eagled across some snowy, forbidden bed. Every time he brought trinkets home to the theater, so many that their bunk. It thrilled her to say it, rattled as they moved around inside. Necklaces and bracelets and medals and knives, cameos and pearls and lace and velvet. It ought, she thought later, to have made her feel bought, every coupling coming with a present. But instead it made her feel like a treasure. She was just one of the 100 beautiful things that shone and rang and glinted from the bare brown boards of that subterranean bunk. Hi, Josh Musics. Hi, Point Fire. Act 2. All right, so we're on to Act 2, Chapter 17. Ooh, shall we continue? Let's continue a bit more. Shay didn't start to sing until she'd been stabbed through the chest. She came crashing down the stairs. Her jacket caught on a hangnail that spun her around and threw her onto the floor. The ox carcasses hung in neat rows, marbled pink in the reflected glow of the ice blocks. She crawled across the floor and threw open the skylight out onto the street, but it was gridded with thick iron bars. She tugged at them as footsteps circled above her head. No alternative exits and nowhere obvious to hide. Above her, the footsteps paused and then got louder. With a grimace, she climbed up and crawled inside the largest of the carcasses. The meat was stiff with cold, but it's chested and split and pinned back, so she was able to squeeze inside like a pupa in a cocoon. Is that how it's pronounced, pupa? I don't remember. It's been so long since I've even, like, they're called pupa, right? Or is it pupa? A pupa sounds correct. Okay. From her roost within the ribcage, she tugged at the slit in the belly and drew the meat around her like a cloak. Ew, God. How grim. How grim. Ugh. Her feet scrabbled for purchase on the frozen rungs of rib, and she held herself rigid. There was a little light in the cellar, and the men upstairs couldn't be sure that she'd come this way, so she slowed her breathing as the carcasses creaked on their chains. They made slow revolutions in some unseen draught. The men, when they came, were careful, low voices and a single torch. They did a circuit of the room, passing just inches from her, and she tried not to exhale. Her breath would show white in the icehouse air. The carcasses revolved ponderously, and she saw a sliver of the room. 4 men in black leather with swords drawn, not speaking. She watched their feet through curtains of flesh. A voice, "The skylight's been opened." One of the men spread his hand between the bars. "She's a skinny bitch, but not that thin, surely." There was no answer. "Do you think she could have gone out back then?" "I don't see how, but she's not in here, is she?" Silence. What were they doing? Shay couldn't see, but the Ghost Theater audience could. They saw the look on one man's face as he noted that the floor rushes had been disturbed. They watched him follow the path from the door to the skylight to that one particular carcass, and they saw fingers on lips and men with soft steps. A mimed count to 3, and then blades were drawn and thrust all the way through the ox in a single movement. 4 blades in, 4 blades out, and then slow drip of blood, fresh blood now, onto the rushes below, a creaking of chains, held breath and ice cracking, and then a body as bloodied and quiet as a stillborn fell and landed on its knees. Silence again, and then the blood-stained head rose and the dead girl began to sing. The place went wild. 4 hours earlier, when the Ghost Theater troupe crossed the river, Southwark had been alive with crowds. A bright shirt-sleeved warm Sunday had appeared out of nowhere, and the city was playing truant. Queues snaked outside every tavern, and the streets crunched underfoot as a mix of crushed shells, nut and oyster both, pockmarked the dirt. They had to wait a quarter hour to see the heads on display at the southern entrance of the bridge. Shay couldn't look, but Nonesuch examined each one with relish, and spent a long time in front of one in particular. "Lord Carlight," he said to no one in particular. "He used to come to the Blackfriars." He took a comb from his pocket and carefully restyled the hair, trying it this way and that until Alouette moved him on. Oh dear, how grim. To think of Nonesuch combing the hair of a head on a spike. I wonder if people did things like that. I'm sure they must have. I mean, imagine your loved one is, brutally murdered and their head's put on a spike on display for the whole city. I mean, you'd want their head to look decent, wouldn't you? I don't know. It's interesting to think like how different our culture has become. These images of death, were so commonplace for people back then. And now death is like really something that people are protected from. But yeah, I mean, thinking of people going to public executions and hangings and, oftentimes the people in attendance were people that knew you. And I wonder, if it was me and somebody I loved had been like, convicted of a murder or something and going to be put to death, would I attend? I mean, I probably would. It's just interesting. It's not even that long ago that they stopped doing public hangings and that kind of thing. I mean, when you really think about it. Anyway. Shay kept quiet. In her tunic, cap, and hose, she looked as blankly male as she had ever managed, and the drunken prentices didn't even register her presence. Still, it was Southwark here, and the saying had it, every pot has a lid, though not in the charmingly romantic way that her father used the expression. There were no Blackfriars performances on a Sunday, so they had all morning to check out the venue for the first Ghost Theater show. But this play needed none of their usual props or tricks, so after running through the slide lines and checking the entrances, they were left with hours to kill. None such had plans. First an ale at the Cross Keys, then lobster at Ginty's, and then to the Bear Pit to touch Sackerson for luck. Sackerson, undefeated. It says indefatigable. Man, I understand what this word means, like not tire. You can't tire him out. Oh God, I'm still having a bit of an issue with my neck, y'all. Ugh. Last week I was quite stiff, and it's a bit better, but every now and then I get a twinge. It's rather painful. Okay, so how do I spell this? Or not spell, how do I say this?
Indefatigable.
Indefatigable. Indefatigable. Okay, Sackerson, undefeated, indefatigable, unbowed, but with much bloodied champion of the Bear Pit. 9 feet of muscle with breath like a charnel house and paws the size of bellows. Those paws had clawed, batted, scratched, torn, teased, and twisted whole packs of dogs, wolves, and in one much storied evening, lions back to their constituent parts. Sackerson was the fever dream of London's youth, pure power and anger, caged but unbowed. He was a recurring obsession of the Blackfriars boys, who invoked his spirit the way gentlemen might talk of their lord. Trussell charged a halfpenny for his heroic drawings of the bear, pitted not against dogs, but instead rampant against sheriffs, theater owners, and schoolmasters. If a man had wronged a Blackfriars boy, then he could, for the price of an ale, be pictorially reduced to a puddle of blood by the sainted animal. How sweet. The Bear Pit was a squat, windowless building that brooded over the Southwark skyline like a storm cloud. None such paid a shilling for each of them to get 10 minutes in Sackerson's pen. A touch of his paw was supposed to bring courage. I mean, my goodness, I don't know that I would want to encounter such a bear that had killed lions and wolves and dogs. Ooh. Come on in. None such as pupils were black discs in the gloom of the pen. He looked frantic and blind. Even in the dark, Sackerson's presence was overwhelming. The bear gave off an odor so thick as to make you swoon. Sweat, musk, sodden straw, and the foundry smell of fresh blood. Shay was tiny amid the glut of the atmosphere. Deep breaths echoed as the bear shuffled sideways and the boards beneath her feet dipped towards his corner. He was big, too big for the room, too big for people even. Shay was close enough to make out his features, and she couldn't see those paws without sensing the fragility of her bones. It would take the smallest of effort for him to snap her, to crush her. She stepped towards him despite herself. The bear smelled sweeter up close, clotted and overripe. Cherries on the churn, meat on the hook. His fur was the deep gray of charred wood, but it was matted a glossy black in patches, mud and blood, and not all of it from the dogs. Shay stepped closer into the weight of him. The floor dipped and creaked as her breath stirred a patch of fur on his belly. She shrank in proximity to so much power and so much pain. Heat poured off of him, and Shay wanted nothing more than to plunge into that fur and be swallowed by the warmth. I want to hug a bear. Why are they so cute? Why are bears so cute? It's not fair. There was that would you rather be, in the forest? Would you rather be alone in the forest with a man or a bear that all these women were responding to? You know what I mean? And that was tough for me because I was like, oh, I've always wanted to tame a bear. What woman hasn't wanted to put her arms just around the big bear and rub their cuddly little ears and their cute little tails? But yeah, it's dangerous. It isn't rational, but there's something about them. I don't know. They're so lovable at the same time as being so deadly. But I mean, what creature really is more dangerous than man? There's none that comes close to us. We subdue them all. Why aren't you mingling in the community and searching for prey, Terri? What community? You mean outside? It's a bit late for me to be out, I would say, unless we're attending some sort of event. So I think that's part of it. The sun is setting. It's a bit cold as well. It's been rather cold the past couple of days, so I haven't really ventured out. I'm more of a morning person anyway. I don't like to be out in the evenings too much. Searching for prey. Do you think that anyone who might, I mean, prey? What must you think of me? I don't know. There are many things to get into. I'm not sure if I'm understanding you correctly. Am I understanding you correctly? Careful, they don't chain him in here, and if he were to get angry. None such his voice was urgent. Well, no one's opening that door for us. Hot breath raked Shay's skull as Sackerson bent over to smell her. She let that delicate, leathery nose explore her. Then, without warning, he flopped back inelegantly, setting the whole pen shaking. He ended up on his arse with his hind legs laid out in front of him, and he began to lick at his wounds. He cleaned the darker patches, occasionally gnawing at some tangle, and all the while he kept up a rumble of yawns, grumbles, and deep vibrations in his belly. As he sat that way like a weary toddler, Shay was struck that, of course, he'd once been a cub with boisterous siblings who'd scrabbled with him down hillsides. He'd had a mother who carried him by the scruff of his neck, cuffed him and licked down stray tufts of hair, and yes, cleaned his wounds for him. Tears formed before she knew why, and she moved closer between those huge hind legs, and Sackerson abandoned the claw on which he'd been chewing. Doleful eyes, vigilant ears, a shoulder wound at Shay's eye level pulsed with a black heat. She saw what she at first thought was a knuckle of exposed bone, but then as she came closer, she realized it was a tooth set amid bloody flesh. Ooh, so he had a tooth stuck in him, poor baby. Sackerson twisted his body and the tooth shifted. He gave an offhand grunt, which was more of a throb through the floor than a noise. Where's he from? Shay asked. Schwarzwald in Germany. None such sounded nervous. It snows 9 months a year, and the forest is so thick you can walk a month without seeing the sun. It took 20 men to bring him here. There's a typo here. It says it took 20 men to bring him here. Shay saw a sea of pine tree tops, white sky, white snow, and trees that never dried out. German forests meant woodpeckers and linnets, turtle doves and ravens. So what would sound like home to Sackerson? She wetted her lips and tried a dove call. It was the oral embodiment of the soft gray at a pigeon's neck, and it was surprisingly hard work. Throat and belly had to move together. She tried again, and Sackerson's ears sprang up doggishly. Shay cooed once more, and it bloomed inside her. The sound of snow falling from firs. The bear let out a questioning moan, gentle and lost. And she moved closer still, with her throat vibrating. She laid a hand on the bear's wound. It was warm and wet, and it throbbed with pain. Oh, poor Sackerson. Poor Sackerson. Oh, dear. This poor dear bear. She laid a hand on the bear's wound. It was warm and wet, and it throbbed with pain. She pressed herself against the blood beat and battle twitch of ancient muscle, and she sought out the tooth. Her dove coo was a tiny thing against his gallon draughts of breath. She twisted and pulled the tooth out in one movement while keeping her body hard against his. Oh my God, what an incredible thing to even imagine. The fang was the length of her hand, gnarled like old trees and stained the yellow of pus. She held it out for the bear to see, but he was back to worrying about that broken claw. The wound blossomed with fresh blood. Oh, poor baby. Poor Sackerson. Oh, he needs some love. He came to the mean streets of London. They put him in a tiny little thing and they made him fight all these beasts. This poor creature. Oh. Imagine you're like a wife of the time and you find out your husband's been out at the bear fight. Oh God, I would be ticked. She don't need to be beating. Hello, Matthew. She don't need to. She's beating men off with sticks. Run for the hills or Terry's trophy room. You all have very silly ideas. Do you imagine that it is that easy for someone like me to go out into the world and to find that sort of thing? It is not. I am not as you imagine. I do not have people rushing, for me with sticks. I mean, it isn't that way. I can go to the village and find a bear. And indeed, I will not. Thank you. Indeed, I will not. Y'all know I'm a Christian. Stop it. Stop. This poor deer bear, though. I do love them. I do love them so. Poor creature. Back out in the sunlight, she kept her hand wrapped around the tooth. They wound their way back through Southwark crowds that were, if anything, rowdier now. Prentices had been drinking since the morning, and the executions were over. Her stomach jolted as they arrived at the tavern. There was a queue outside and a crowd inside, all waiting for them. The upstairs room was filled with loose groups spread across the bare floor. The play needed no stage, but that meant there was nothing to focus on, and the crowd churned. People shouted across the room and carried clutches of chinking ale jugs under chins. 50 people now, 60. The space cloyed with the drying sweat of post-work revelry, as voices were raised over others, and soon there was a roar like the wash of a great ship. So many faces. Shay looked at them one by one, great rosy slabs with mouths agape for talk and beer and unchewed hunks of bread, and the enormity of the evening squatted in the pit of her stomach. Soon every one of these faces would be turned towards her. They would want something from her, and she was certain that she didn't have what they wanted. What did they want? Fear hunched and churned in her gut, a dog settling in for the night, and the room sweated around her. She needed air. Thank you, Missing Maud. Hi. Just bring a picnic basket. Oh, dear. Thank you. She says I look stunning tonight. Thank you. You like my hair? I kind of threw it up last minute halfway. I wanted to wear it down, but that wasn't right. I had it up before, but that wasn't exactly right. So we did a half and half. I think it looks pretty neat. Bears are amazing animals. Hi, Tar Baby Yoda. I concur. I love bears. I love all bears. My nickname when I was little that my dad gave me was Tear Bear. And only a few people have really called me Tear Bear here and there. But, whenever somebody asks, it's always kind of sweet. I let them. But yeah, my dad had a big bear tattoo on his arm. He had this like homemade tattoo when I was really little that was terrible. It was it said Mom's apple pie, and it was just so bad. So he eventually, once he recovered some of his health, got himself working again and stuff, he got this beautiful, like, massive bear face tattoo. And I regret I don't have any photographs of it that I can find. It was on his bicep. It was gorgeous. I do have one of his eagle, because he had an eagle as well. He had dragons, an eagle, and then he had that massive bear tattoo. And I definitely want to get a bear at some point as well. I've thought about it like as a tribute to my dad in some way, get my own bear. Bears are morbidly obese dogs. I do not like your username, Pinochet's Helicopter. I do not find that funny. Point Fire says, who's been eating my porridge? Your dad was cool. He did his best. Mama's bitch ass ran out on you guys. No, she didn't. I went with my mother. My mother took me. She didn't run out. That's not what happened. My mother took me back to her home. My dad followed, and they broke up, and they decided that I would be taken to live with my father. My mother was part of that decision. So she didn't run out. It was for the best, honestly. They were not a couple made in heaven. The Chileans forced you to adopt that username. I highly doubt they did. I don't know. Like, I don't find it like, ugh. It's awful what happened to people in Chile. It was like horrible. I mean, imagine that was your family member got thrown from a fucking helicopter or disappeared and you have no idea where they were. Okay, so where were we? Through the crowd and out into the cold of the alley, evening air slapped across her cheeks. She stood with hands on her knees and breathed in the frost, relishing its scratch against her throat. Somewhere high above her, a bird rolled a black ball across the starlight, and her heart reached for it. She imagined herself up there in the wind roar and snow seats, Looking down on a girl in an alley who meant nothing at all, it helped. A hand on her shoulder made her start. All right? None such was framed against the door, and another black bird against the light. He didn't wait for her answer. Needed a piss. He walked a couple of paces and then pissed noisily against a door. Oh dear. Steam in his off-key whistle and a sharp smell like marsh water. All right, he asked again as he buttoned himself up. I don't think I can do this. Saying it gave the fear teeth. I know. His voice was blank. Not angry, but not compassionate either. You know that I can't do it? She hadn't considered that he might offer her a way out. I know how it feels. He lit his pipe, and she caught the long lines of his face drawn tight. His eyes were hidden doorways. All those people, all those eyes, they want so much. Your body is telling you to run to the furthest corner of the world and to curl up and hide there. He turned to face her. He tapped his bottom teeth against the top ones unconsciously. Yes, so he understood there would be an escape. Wordlessly. What were they traitors? How are they traitors? I'm sorry, what were they traitors to? That guy wasn't elected. That wasn't democracy. He was the traitor. Y'all crazy. Y'all are insane. Commies. Yeah, well, you know what? So what? They're human beings. I don't care what their politics are. They're human beings. And that's what the country was like at the time. You know, socialists were in control of the government. They were democratically elected. Well, it's just, you know, and I've known people who like are from there. So it's just like, I don't know, like you just, like, it's always disturbed me, like how people make light or jokes about throwing people out of helicopters. Like, is that what you want to happen to people here, your fellow country people, because they don't agree with you politically? Or that just, you know, disappear forever? They, you know, end up murdered and nobody knows where they are. Is that what you want to happen in your country? Like, it's horrible. And it's just horrible that like Americans would make fun of it when like they're the ones who kind of helped it happen in the first place. Not us, you know, but the American government had its hands in that. So it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, is that what you want to see happen here? It's horrible. He was old school. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You're crazy. Pardon my language, but excuse me. Terrible. Y'all need to go pray. That's not what the Lord wants. Okay. Wordlessly, he took her hand and slid it inside his shirt. His heart juddered so hard that his ribs rattled. If Shay had thought that finding none such in the same boat might help, she was wrong. He puffed on his pipe. I feel that way too, like my skeleton wants to run back to Blackfriars, pulling me behind it. So what do we do? None such tipped out the last of the tobacco and extinguished the tiny amber stars with a boot tip. We just do it. We're going to feel right up until the moment that we start speaking that there's no way we can do this. But remember, all we have to do is stay here. His eyes searched hers. Stay. Your wax might burn out, but your wick will remain. You won't think you can do it at the start. You won't think you can do it while you're doing it. And next time, he pressed her her hand against his chest. It'll be harder still. A rush of light and a voice from behind them. None such. It's time. The other three stood in the doorway, and none such gestured them into a huddle. They stood, arms around one another's shoulders, heads so close that their icy breaths became one. Blank squeezed her hand, and the feeling was joy and fear in such perfect balance that she almost laughed. None such said, I know that all we have is our words, but we are going to build something with them tonight. The ring shook with the nodded heads. Most of the people here have never seen a play that's not about gods and kings. Hell, some of them have never even seen a play. He looked around the circle, making sure all eyes met. Shay wished she could stay there forever, her friend's breath in her mouth, their arms around her. Keep it truthful, None Such said. Keep it beautiful, and tomorrow these people will feel like heroes. And we five will have something that can never be taken from us. His nails dug into Shay's palm. A last flicker of eyes around the circle, and then the seriousness lifted from him. He stood tall, pulled his hat down low and said, Right, let's start a fire. The play was simple enough. The four of them had robbed a shop, Gilmore's bird shop, a hat tip to her. But they had been caught in the act. They were scattered and set upon by Gilmore and his men. None such had made it back to the meeting point, this very back room, while Shay and Alouette and Blank were still being pursued. And while None Such waited for his friends, he talked. There was no raising of the curtain or dimming of the lights. Instead, a butter-soft trumpet note, alien in the wash of noise, cut through, and None Such said, I lost the thugs on the corner of Knight Rider Street. I went left and they went right, following the others. I've always been lucky that way. He knelt and drew a long oblong in chalk on the floor around him, a stage. Instinctively, the crowd stepped back. He talked ruefully as much to his ale as to the crowd, recounting the plans they'd had and all the mistakes they'd made. Hearing him talk made Shay's stomach lurch like the moment that horses get a carriage moving. He spoke in a pure London accent, slurred and playful, words running together and wrapped around the kind of slang that Shay recognized from overhead alehouse conversations. Boys were blades, girls were sheaths, and every little piece of back slang had the younger watchers hooting. He sounded winded, almost beaten, and far from the heroic figure that he usually played. But the audience were rapt. He got his first real laugh about 2 minutes in, a nervous should we find this funny ripple, and then they came regularly. Every face was angled his way, eyes shone, mouths were closed. What was that look, that collective look they wore? She couldn't describe it exactly, but it was a kind of surrender. And then Blank stuck him, only a nick across the ear, but you know that bleeds like a pig. And you know a penny's worth of noble blood costs the likes of us a sovereign. That was Blank's cue. He threw open the side door, and a moment later he was outside in the cold air. The crowd surged after him. Now the alley was lit with lanterns, and Blank waited on one end on another chalk outline. He whispered his lines, quiet and desperate. The crowd shushed one another to hear, and then shushed the shushers. He said that Gilmore's men were upon him, and this was the end. He said he had secrets that he'd never told, and if no human ears could hear them, then he would tell them to the night. With mounting horror, Shay recognized that, whatever None Such had said, Blank could really act. His fear and sorrow painted the backdrop. You fancied you could hear the barking of dogs and the cries of the encircling men. Shouts came from the other end of the alley, and Blank looked around him, still trapped. The crowd parted to let 4 boys in black leather through. Hisses rained down, and Shay marveled at the faces in the audience. Genuine anger, genuine fear. The men were on him in seconds, clubs rising and falling with blank, unseen beneath them. It took a whole minute, a minute where the crowd held its breath, and then the men were gone, with arms around one another and sweat on their brows. Before the audience could applaud, Nonsuch called out, "And what of my friend Flanders, Alouette?" He hurried back inside and climbed the stairs. The crowd followed him. Alouette's scene took place on the roof, so Shay sat in the now deserted tavern and tried to breathe. She followed the action upstairs through muffled noises, running footsteps, laughter, a collective gasp, a thud, and just the edges of a song. And then they were coming back down, and it was her turn. A flood rose in her, something viscous and hot that swelled up into her throat. Her cue was the funeral drumbeat from blank. Nonsuch crouched in front of her with the chalk, and he drew a curve from her feet around and behind her, a heart. Carefully he withdrew, not looking at her, and she lurched forward, and there was a moment when she thought, no, she knew. There was no way she could do this. Her line, "I knew he'd be the death of me." The words sat there like the horizon. I knew, the death of me. Faces like a wall. I knew he'd be the death of me. The line died on the way out of her mouth, stubbed its toe, and limped into the room. She repeated it, and the rest of her lines piled up in front of her, carts running into the back of each other. She pushed at the parts she could remember, and others pulled up before their fences. The wall of faces lost its rapture, and her chest throbbed with shame. She was ruining the others' hard work. And then the actors playing Gilmore's men entered, their cries, "Over there, I see the bitch," had the crowd craning their necks, and Shay dropped to her knees and crawled into the throng. Action was easier than talking. Across the floor, sticky with beer, rush ends cutting at her palms, but unseen hands guiding her toward the steps. The crowd coalesced around her, and a cry went up, "To the ice house!" Shielded on all sides, she made it through the trapdoor. Hands pulled it open for her and pushed her through. She half fell, half climbed down into the cool of the ice room. The huge blocks gave off a ghostly glow as if lit from within, and carcasses hung in a neat square. She looked around her for somewhere to hide, even though the whole point was that there wasn't anywhere. Earlier in rehearsal, climbing inside the ox's body had felt claustrophobic. Now it was a relief. Oh my, what is going on out there? I can't see anything, what it is. It has to, with a honk like that, it has to be like a truck or a bus or maybe even the train. Sometimes the train does get loud. The trucks attack. I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, it does sound like something's up with the traffic though. And I do see, yeah. Something is stopped. Someone has their hazard lights on. The traffic's moving through, it seems. I wonder. Yeah, I wonder what happened. I don't know. Quite loud though. Do I have any eggs handy? Hello, Zenny and Bond. I definitely would not egg anyone. Oh, pardon me. What you all must think of me? You think I'm some sort of bar harlot or something that goes off into the night and seeks prey. You think I'm some kind of vandal who throws eggs. My goodness. Definitely not a Haitian traffic jam. I don't think we've gotten any Haitians in this area. I've definitely not noticed any. Well, anyway, let us continue. Let's continue with our story and the brilliant work of Shay here. Oh, okay. Okay, let's see. When the men finally surrounded her, she ran through the checklist: squeeze the blood bladder, flour across the face, and hide the evidence at the back of the carcass. Harder than it sounded, hanging jammed inside an ox. She watched the men's feet and saw the blades slide in either side of her. Squeeze, smear, hide. Once done, she let herself fall forward and hit the ground with a crash, less elegantly than in rehearsal. She landed on an elbow, and the jab of pain made her cry out, "Stupid, stupid Shay. She was supposed to be dead." She lay on the floor where she could feel the audience rather than see them. What now? The song. Not one of them had wanted to sing, but none such had been insistent. Stage plays need approval from the master of the revels, but musical performances don't. A song or two might save our skin. Her mouth wouldn't work. He'll be the death of me, she thought. Her heart raced, but she felt light, hollow-boned, and suddenly her vision lurched. She rose like smoke, up, 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 until she was looking down on herself. A girl dressed as a boy sprawled on the floor. She watched her mouth open and close as the view pulled back, the audience like stones on a beach, as she raised her arms and the clouds drew around her. And then she was upstairs with hands on her back and voices shiny in her ears. At first she thought that the prentices had grabbed her for a beating, and she shrunk from the touches. But no, they were slapping her back. Men howled victory at her. They were drunk. She was a treasure, and everyone was much too close and much too loud. She waited until they were done with her and then ducked out into the alley where the swollen moon was framed between overhanging eaves and rats scuttled in the shadows. Oh, I love when rats scuttle at night. Aren't they cute when they scuttle at night? No, they're not getting my kitty. They're not going to get my kitty. No, they will not. Oh. Can we please have one night where I don't have to talk about Taylor Swift? Please. Rain had washed the street to mud, but at least the air smelt fresh. She breathed in deeply and bathed herself in moonlight. Only the smear of mud across her knees and the ache in her elbow told her that it had really happened. Again, the oblong of light. Trestle came blinking into the alley, and a smile broke his face as he saw her. He pulled a pouch from his bag and then patted his pockets. "Tobacco?" he asked. "If you have spare," she said. He lit and fanned his pipe and then took her shoulders like he might shake her. "Are you all right? That was extraordinary." She checked herself over. Her face still burned and her arm hurt. "What happened? I don't remember." "Why didn't you say you could sing like that? What even was it?" "It wasn't the song from rehearsals." "I don't know." Her throat was sore. "You really don't remember?" He couldn't take his hands off her. "You were really good." He sounded surprised. "Really?" True, Trestle was always doggedly complimentary towards her, but she still ached to hear that she hadn't let the others down. "Really, when you started, I thought you were going to lose them after, he made a vague gesture, but your singing just reeled them in." Pride, praise, a drunken feeling. How? What did I do? It's hard to describe. I wish I could replicate it. It sounded like a song, but then it seemed to shake apart. It was almost bird song, and then almost prophecy. Can you really not remember? You were cooing like a wood pigeon. Then you sang that we were all birds. You told us that from now on our feet would never touch the sullen earth. People were crying, tough old men weeping. He spoke with the odd whisper that the Blackfriars boys reserved for the natural order of things being overturned. They wept like girls. He took her hands in his. He was shaking even though the night wasn't that cold. He said, "Shay, could I?" But he stopped as someone materialized through the side door. Blank listed to one side and his jacket hung open. He raised his trumpet and blew a ragged fanfare. He was hopelessly drunk. "You should have warned me." He sounded elated as he complained. "I caught some of the melody by halfway." Pardon me, y'all. I don't have much water in here, like a little tiny dash. Hello to Galahad. Galahad, who has entered the chat, and Stacy. Hi, Stacy. Okay. I played something, but I'm not sure it helped. He planted a kiss on her cheek. Stubble rubbed like old brick and a rotten smell of strong wine. "Come inside, you two. It's opening night." It was an hour before Nonsuch found them. He was propped up against a young baroness, and his arm around her looked like it might have more to do with support than lechery. "There she fucking is." He gave a mock bow, and his hat falling from his head, but neatly caught before it touched the mud. Maybe he was less drunk than he appeared. "You, my darling flapper, are the darkest of horses. You're a midnight black stallion in a coal cellar. A fucking funeral horse in mourning rags on a starlit night." He snuffled. "You're that dark." He shook himself free from the girl and pulled Shay over to Alouette and Blank and Trussell. All were surrounded with admirers, but Nonsuch told them, "Piss off for a bit, my lovers, would you? Company meeting." 5 heads together in that cold, steamy breath commingling and shoulders touching. That was something. His hand tightened on Shay's shoulder. His hair was on her hair. It was, then slid almost gracefully onto the alley floor. It was. Then he slid almost gracefully onto the alley floor. Okay, he sounds a bit drunk. A maze of a night, 2 more taverns, different rooms drowned in the same sea of noise, and stragglers lost along the way, quiet in the streets and then raucous behind closed doors in places that only Nonsuch knew. They called in on a card game in a bakery that was already heating the ovens for the morning, and Nonsuch lost a hatful of coins to 2 slumming gentlemen, who then paid him straight back to do his impersonation of the Queen. Onto a shipboard going-away party for sailors set to leave in the morning. Boys who were just shaved and raw in fresh white uniforms. They drank with a grim purposefulness and tattooed each other expertly, and made wills and drank again and begged Shay for kisses, and more that she didn't feel she could decline because they were so young and so bright. She danced and ignored the parade of adolescent groins round against her, and only slapped away the most egregious hand wanderings. And Nonsuch spun at the center of the night, the still point of a whirlpool. In those moments when she lost sight of him, she just watched the crowd rotate and waited for a glimpse of its center. She knew that when the dawn wiped the shadowy glamour from the scene, she would circle and drain and find herself in his bunk, in his arms, with her nose in his curls like miniature whirlpools themselves, and the 2 of them would be the center of the city, and everything would slow and revolve around them. The night would have been perfect for one of those cautionary tales about the licentiousness of London life that she and other fledglings had heard, wrapped with fear and secret delight from the older Abascoltans. It was an evening of drunkenness to the point of oblivion. Lewd songs that woke lawful citizens long past curfew, and a celebration of excess. Spilt wine, discarded food, shilling bets, and tuppence tobacco. But actually experiencing it deep in the swirl of the night, she found it gloriously innocent. Just the froth and chatter of children alive, for the first time, to their voices, and the chance of using them. Until, with even the hardiest revelers beginning to slump, none such dragged the four players and an eddy of followers back along the Thames to the last, the final, I promise, the ultimate drink of the night. 53 days until the election. Is everyone registered to vote? On board Blank Ship, the warm rot of vegetation and blazing braziers gave it a tropical air, even as the boys' breath turned to ice smoke in front of them. Lads rolled a greening barrel up from the bellow decks, and Shay, though already more thick-headedly drunk than she'd ever been, queued up laughing with the others for her chance to lie on her back and take a huge spluttering gulp from this gushing spigot. And as a corona of dawn bloomed on the horizon, like the first stirrings of a hangover, a mist began to roll in from the river. It came as a slow, gluttonous ocean, as smoothly right for the moment as if none such had stage managed it. Could he have done? Shay imagined him conjuring it somehow with a casual stage direction. Enter stage left, the fog. Sounds like they had quite a perfect night. Without needing to be told, boys started climbing the rigging. Up they went, Shay following, climbing above the gathering whiteness until the rigging was strung with youths. They were suspended there in their joy and drunkenness, swinging from one hand with a jug in the other, heads pointed at the heavens as the mist thickened and rose and boiled, ankle deep, thigh deep. So up they went again, until they hung like stars themselves, looking out and down over a landscape of cloud, with London softly blotted and only the tallest of landmarks peeking toy-like from between the banks of the fog. Sound came with intense clarity and seemingly from all around, and it took Shay a moment to realize that the voice in her head was coming from an Italian boy hanging just inches from her. He said, "Did you hear? We are birds." He smelled of hair oil and sweat, and the wonder poked through in his voice just as the spire of St. Paul's poked up through the fog. "Did you hear? Did you hear?" His hand was around her wrist, but his eyes were untethered. He leaned out over the abyss and spoke loudly enough for every boy to hear. "We are birds," he said, "and our feet will never more touch the sullen earth." Well, I think I'm going to stop there, y'all. We're up to chapter 18. How exciting. Whew. Oof, man. Yeah, my neck is killing me. I'm probably... Good impersonations. Oh my. Zenny and Frederick are beefing in the chat. Frederick is clowning on Zenny's impersonations. Yoda is disagreeing and saying they were good impersonations. Zenny has called Frederick a homosexual. And this is despite the fact that Frederick is one of the only men in this chat to father children. Oh, You and Nick get quite funny sometimes, Frederick. It's like a double act, I swear. Sometimes when you call, and Nick's like, "See what he's doing." It's like a stage play almost. Like he gets so animated. Dr. Tubio. I don't know. I was thinking of getting a massage, but I don't know. When it's hurting like this, I don't like to have people touch me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. I was hoping it would have, died down enough by now. But honestly, I think it's some of it's stress. Work is just crazy right now. I do. I have some time coming up next week, though. And like I said, yeah, I don't know. I think I'll visit a masseuse and have myself worked on a bit. No, I don't have any free weights. I mean, there's a gym in my building, so I do have access to free weights if I wish. I don't know. I have been like working on it a bit, like rotating it around and such. And I thought it was gone, but yeah, it's been twinging today. Well, anyway, Dr. Tubio. Yeah, I don't know. I would like a chiropractor to like work on my legs. I just don't know who would be good. But you recommend Dr. Tubio. Have you been get some diclofenaco with B12? I think my dad used to take diclofenaco. What is that? Whoa, Zenny. 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 Look at you. Zenny. I can't believe Zenny right now. It's from chatting. Yeah, maybe it is. It might be. You're right. It's from my plane. It's from my plane in the chat. A bear massage. I know. I just need a bear. Some of it may be ergonomics. I don't know. Meow. I'm wrapping it up. I'm wrapping it up. We're wrapping it up. You're gonna have it. Yeah, I'm wrapping it up. I promise. You're so pretty. You're the prettiest boy. You are the prettiest boy I've ever seen. Look at them eyes. Look at you. What a fine cat. What a fine cat you are. Who the best kitty? You want to come up here? You want to come up and say hi? I don't think I have a pinched nerve, y'all. It's best not to speculate about. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on, my dear. You come up here right now. You don't play down there. You come up here. Why do you ignore me? I know you want to. Yes, I know you want to come up here. Come up here, love. Come up here, my sweet kitty. What if I made my lap flat? If I made the lap flat, would that be better? Oy. Hey, I know you want to get on my lap. Come on. You know you want to get up here. Come on. Come on. Come on, sweetie. He's playing hard to get. He's playing hard to get. What's up, Nero, aka Toucans? See, the people want to see you, baby. Everyone needs a chiropractor, maybe. Come on, baby. I know my supervisor uses one pretty regularly. He's got a beta back. He works all crazy hours, though. I can't believe him sometimes, what he's able to get done. Like, as stressful as my job is, I can't even imagine how he does it. But you know what? I like that I work for somebody who is so hardworking. You know, it's motivating when you know the people above you are working harder than you are. It's motivating. Come on. Come on. Oh, come on, my love. Come on. Come on. You know you want to get up here. You know, yes, you do. There we go. There we go. Oh, my God. Oh, my gosh. What a fine kitty this is. What a fine kitty. You got a fine kitty here? What a fine kitty. So fine. Oh, yes. So fine. So handsome. So good kitty. So good kitty. Isn't he fine? Isn't he a good kitty? He certainly is not, Yoda. What the hell? You really shouldn't be so disrespectful when you don't know someone that well anyway. And even then you shouldn't be. Like, nothing you're saying is necessary. Even if it were true, which it's not, you know, it's really. I don't know what your beef is. Why do people hate you so much, Fred? You're one of the most entertaining callers there is. You do so much for the JLP universe. I don't respect him at all. Okay. Mama, stop. Well, it's in my chat. I feel bad. Let them hatch it out. It hurts my feelings. Do the plus signs in the title mean anything? I just like putting them on. It's usually because I don't know how many chapters I'm going to read. And then also, I get distracted by reacting to the chat, you know, reading words I don't know, looking them up, going off on my own little silly tangents. And then usually at the end, I'll have like a little time where I just kind of, you know, chat informally with you guys. So that's what they mean. So when I put up the little plus signs, it means it's not just me reading chapter 15. There's more. How do you not understand why people dislike him? I mean, I don't know. I mean, people dislike me. I don't understand that much either. That's why I stay out of your chats lately. Oh, Frederick, see? They don't make me feel bad. I like having Fred in my chats. Y'all. Emotional. All they do is cry. Yeah, there's a lot of policing too. But whatever, it's all good. Hey, did Tom Bell ever fight with you? I remember he said he was gonna be in LA and that he was gonna fight with you. I don't know if that ever amounted to anything. We love you, Terry. Don't lie. I mean, some people do, but I have people that are rather hateful towards me. They usually don't show up in my chat. I mean, Jupiter was here the other day, and she left a couple of mean comments, but no, mostly people who hate me, like, or they'll come over here and then like feel bad because they didn't realize, you know what a nice person I was. Hi, Gregatron. Gregatron's here. John didn't want that smoke. That was so crazy. I wonder where he's been. I haven't seen him in a while. I am less evil every day. Well, I mean, yeah, that's hopefully. That is true. Hopefully. I mean, that's the path I'm trying to be on. Let the Lord change my heart. You are so perfect. There is no one as perfect as you. Never ever. Look at you. You're so sleek. Okay, well, she hate me, though. She mean to me. Who hates you? The fact is, they're your biggest fan. I mean, yeah, but I also, sometimes I can't deal with that much, fandom. It can be a little bit difficult. you know, it can just be a little bit much. But Terri and various other white women don't give an F. I do block the haters, Zenny. I got a block list. I even block people who aren't haters because they be getting on my nerves sometimes. And I mean, a lot of the people who are like, or I block people because they're inappropriate with me. That happens a lot in the chat, like just saying things. I mean, I probably will. Yeah, I probably will end up blocking her. She isn't around all the time though, and usually I just try to ignore her. But yeah, I probably will end up blocking her at some point. Oh, sorry, baby. Get his fur off of here. Yeah. Yeah, Golden Rule just got out of, Golden Rule and Kale Samogi got blocked for a while too. They've been unblocked. Yoda got accidentally blocked. I didn't see him attack Zenny. What did he say? Did he make fun of, I saw him make fun of Zenny's impersonations. But I thought they were already beefing at that point. Oh, does she not like Jessie? I mean, yeah, sometimes I see her be critical of things that are said, but I mean, I don't think anything of that. There's a lot of people that are critical in the chat. I mean, Zenny, I've seen be critical in the chat. He's very critical of certain things that Jessie says. You are too good. Look at you. He's purring. He's purring so good. What are y'all talking about? I don't know. Let's not talk about it anymore. I don't want to talk about people. I'm just saying, it's most of the time, yeah, people are hateful that I come across. They don't usually come over here. You know what I mean? Put this back up here. They don't come over to my channel and interact here, so it's not usually a problem anyway. Jesse, our prophet. Is he our prophet? You roasted Kevin, Zazen, and Nugget Man. Yeah, they've all been kind of nasty to me. I think Kevin Howe blocked me for a while, and now I'm not blocked anymore by him. But I don't know for sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't generally, though, I know I can be irritating or people might not like what I'm saying, but I don't generally attack people. Mark is a lurker. Ugh. Is Mark watching now? Getting seething. Mark's seething. The sweat furrowing on his skin. His glasses getting fogged up with anger while watching my stream. No, I had to block Nugget Man. I had to block him. He was oof. He was really vile, just really vile. I couldn't deal with it. like he'd been hateful for a while, and then like he got really just bad, and I was like, I can't be like, I tried to ignore it, but I really, because I don't like who wants to block mods? Like I don't want to block people who are moderated. That's weird. I couldn't take it. Yeah, I blocked Falconing. I don't remember. How do you know I blocked Falconing? How do you know about who I blocked? Are you Falconing? I don't even remember what I blocked Falconing for, but I think he was being nasty. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Kevin is an atheist. Kevin Howe? Is there another Kevin? Oh dear. We shouldn't be on here gossiping about people in the chat, really. Who knows what the. Yeah, Zazen is interesting. He attacks me a bit sometimes too, or responds. You don't need to break some bones. No, Gregatron. Princess Snow White. Thank you. No, I don't. I just, I just block people. I don't like what I'm experiencing. I'll block them. There's been a lot of people that or were cool with me initially, or they didn't get the kind of response they wanted from me, and then I ended up having to block them. It's just like, it's weird. And then there's people that have been nasty to me, but like it just hasn't crossed the line for it to result in a blocking. Yeah. Well, yeah, Yoda, you got those guys good. Oh, you so good. No, Gregatron, don't beat anyone up. I'm okay. It's just my feelings that get hurt, People don't realize how sensitive I really am. And they think when I'm being serious that I'm trolling, and then when I'm trolling, I'm being serious. It's not fair. Well, thank you, Yoda. He's the only one that took up for me. Yoda's the only one. I don't know. Fred's taken up for me before too, and Joe. Joe from Phoenix has taken up for me. Mama Joe. Don't ever let any of these nasty people in this chat. What did he say to me? God, it was so funny. What did he say? It was so funny. Don't let the words of the nasty people in this chat ever affect you. And I didn't think what the people were saying to me was like, I don't even remember what it was. It was in the JLP chat, and yeah, he added me with that. He was like, at Terri. I was like, Lord. Mama Joe's coming to protect me. That's nice. Zenny's taken up for me. Yeah, y'all have been very kind. Yeah, Zenny has. Do you remember that, Gregatron? That was great. And yeah, Chris called him, was like, Mama Joe. It was funny. I appreciated it. Joe from Phoenix with his goats. Joe didn't want to see a nice white lady get bullied in the chat. He's nice. He's interesting though. Like sometimes I listen to him because he's out to prove that like black people are decent, But then he like describes black people that are, basically he refers to some of them as like, he uses the term thug a lot, ghetto and thug a lot. And I kind of like, sometimes when he's saying it, I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't know. I mean, I know what he means, but I'm also like, why is he saying this? Like, trying to differentiate yourself. You resented me, but I fixed Hake. There's nothing wrong with Hake. Hake is fine the way he is. Hake is fearfully and wonderfully made. What did you fix about him in any sense? Like, are you delusional? Like, what do you think you've done to fix him? Remember a three-way battle between you, Joe, and Mark about white guilt and black privilege. I have no idea what you're talking about, Greg. Gregatron. I got no, like, I don't remember that. I don't, white guilt and black privilege. I don't remember any such discussion. I remember, like, one of the times I called in, how tall is Hake? He's like 6 foot plus or minus. I like the side laughing emojis though. You, Mark, and Hank. Yeah, I don't remember that but white guilt and black privilege. I think I called in that man is 5'9". So minus. Galahad, you're delusional. Way off about cops and music. Log. Honey, you didn't do anything. Like, you were misreading you misread him, I think. I mean, that's just the impression I got. You've misread or misjudged him. Like, and I did that at first as well. Like, the first time, like, it took me a while to warm up to him, honestly, because he was, like, off-putting at first. Because he's always calling people communists and, like, yeah, I remember. But then, like, actually listening to his show and listening to the spirit he came in with, like, I really did kind of, I mean, I had to change my opinion because I was wrong. I never accused him of having white guilt. No, that's not me. That never happened. Why would I accuse someone of having white guilt? That's not even something I would say. Galahad, you are delusional, honey. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, sometimes your comments are like, I can't with you because it's like you're operating on a whole other, like, plane of reality that nobody else is on. Yeah. Are you talking about, yeah, Terri would never accuse somebody of having white guilt. Terri would be accused of having white guilt because she sucks up to Negroes, as they say. Because I'm friendly with Fred. And usually when Fred calls, after the call's over, I'm always like, great call in the chat. Just to trigger the people that really hate Fred. But usually the calls are great if you're getting rid of your white guilt. I don't have any white guilt. What do I have to be guilty about? Greg, you're misremembering. I never, ever accused Hake of having white guilt. Your tacit support of Fred is terrible. Fred is hilarious. Sometimes his calls are amazing. Like, sometimes Fred's calls are really, like, they don't always hit. Let's be real. Sometimes Fred doesn't always hit. But when he hits, it's funny and it works. It's entertaining. Things get out that wouldn't otherwise. I don't know. Like, and you don't have, like, it's not even about agreeing with necessarily what he says. Well, no, Fred isn't going to be happy about that. Where's he going to hang out on the internet all day? Mm-mm. he call me a snake? Do you think he thinks I'm a snake? He did say I was evil. He did say I was the serpent once. But I'm not a snake. Not in the sense of like my support for and like when I call into the show, I don't have any agenda other than to just like talk about ideas or whatever. Am I going to be happy too? What if Kamala Harris wins? I'm not going to let that affect me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to let it affect me either way. Supporting evil is evil. What are you talking? What evil? Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, Gregatron. I need to like. I'm sorry, I can't bring it. I can't. Snake servant, maybe like Eve. Oh, well, no, there was this one time when Maina and Joel was like, hey, do you want to start an N-word tower on the Hake show in the JL Peace chat? And then I added both of them and I was like, why don't you just do it here? Kamala is not going to win. Oh my God, no chance in hell. I don't really, I have a wait and see attitude, about this. I think anything's possible, honestly. And I don't think you should ever underestimate anything. Like, I know in my mind, like, and my heart, I think ain't no effing way people are going to vote for this woman, but they are. A lot of them are. Millions of Americans are. And then apart from that, like, are our elections even real? You know? That why would she like, okay. Well, they have their own network now, so we'll migrate over to Punchy TV. Jesus, honey, calm down. 16 years of Barry Soetoro will destroy the country. God. Yeah, I know it is. It does feel like just another continuation of the Obama thing. I mean, God, ugh, what a mess. My God, Point Fire. Why do they have so many of them? She wants to trans the illegals. That was a great highlight from the debate, I have to say, when he talked about her wanting to trans the illegals. 83,000. Really? Well, why are so many of these people like? Why are they like? I'm confused. Is something going on? I mean, I do know that there's been like conflicts in India. I know that there's been persecution of Christians in parts of India as well. Like, so I don't know what's going on exactly. I'm ignorant, but 3.5 million since COVID. That's a lot of people. All of the cities are not trash cans. I live in a city. It's not a trash can. Does Frederick really support it, or does he like to trigger people about it because it's funny? I mean, I really don't want to discuss the details. I mean, about it. Like, the reality is, this has been going on for decades at this point of our country not being very secure. Zenny, you need to calm down. Cope. What am I even coping about? Zenny, you let this stuff affect you emotionally too much. Like I've said, whatever happens, I'm not worried. I'm not going to be unhappy. I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to let stuff that's outside of my control affect my inner world. Wayu. You're right. I do need to go to bed, don't I? Do I need to go to bed? It's late. He don't want me up all night talking on that computer. Am I always on that damn computer? I'm on that computer, then I'm on that one, and then I'm over here on this one. It's not fair. Is that right? Oh God, I can't with y'all. Like, listen to yourselves talk. No optimism. Like, what? Why do you men talk like this? Do you not understand that the words you speak are powerful? Why do you put such defeatism in your words? Like, you're defeated in your language. You're defeated in your thought talk. There's no hope. Well, I'm not going to be that way. I know that things will work out well for me regardless of what happens. Brigatron, what are you talking about? Like, have you found the video? Have you found, like, I don't remember. Me and Hank getting into it. About white guilt? Mark was on my side about Joe getting so much airtime. What's my side? I don't care about how much airtime Joe gets. It doesn't affect me at all. Sometimes he's boring, but honestly, I think it's cute how much he calls Hank. You know, I kind of I've had a change of heart about Joe. I don't know. I think it's kind of like Joe's no different than me at the end of the day or anybody else. Like, I need to obey, woman. Obey what? A bunch of defeatist nonsense from men who aren't even my husband? Hell no. Are you paying my bills? No. Then I don't need to obey you. Next. Aw, thanks. It's sweet. He loves Hake. He calls in because he wants to speak to his friend Hake. Hake is a part of his life. You know, it's sweet, honestly. And for Mark too. Mark's not any different. Like, honestly, and then I'm like kind of sucked in too a little bit. I'm like, oh, my friend Hake. You know, I thought that like his callers are very emotionally attached. Not all of them, I think, but like, do I want you to? No, Galahad, I do not want you to. Galahad, hell no. I've heard you talk. You're creepy. You creep me out. Like, no way in hell. Oh, geez, Point Fire. That sounds scary. Oh, golden rule. Don't say that. It's okay when I call him a bootlicker. It isn't okay when you do it. Jeez. I'm done. I'm done for the evening. I will not discuss this any further. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm going to sing the I Was Right song. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to go to bed after I, take care of all this. Get this to, point. Creepy how? Honey, you creepy. Sometimes you're creepy in the chat. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of cops either. I also don't think that one should approach interactions with cops in a negative way. Like there was that Tariq, I don't even know who he is. Like that was appallingly ridiculous. That guy's just, famous and very full of himself and not compliant and being very disrespectful to the fact that he was pulled over by a cop. So, in those circumstances, I think cops, I don't think the cops were wrong to treat him the way they did because honestly, nobody probably has ever put any authority on him. You know what I mean? Like men like that. I don't think men should be your fame, your status in your mind does not make you different than anyone else. It doesn't give you some kind of you don't get to circumvent the law or, act differently or get treated differently because you perceive yourself to be differently. You know what I mean? Stop it! I'm wrapping it up. I'm sorry. Why? Why? No. Wow. Yeah, you're right. The chat are just pulling me in with all this. That being said, I'm not the biggest fan of I know they do horrible things, I know they do corrupt things. I even know they target, they profile, they harass and intimidate, I know there's plenty of crooked cops. I also know there's just plenty of regular normal cops that, really want to just serve their community and do what's right. It's so I try to just I try to just be chill about it. He is not cursing at me. He's also an alarm clock too. Hello, Paul Scott. Bedtime young. Really? There's a no-fly program? We're going to have to talk about that another time. Yeah, yes. Yeah. I just think, if you have to deal with them, try to, act your best. But yeah, you guys, I got to go. He's ticked. He is ticked. He wants me to go, and he's right. It is bedtime. So y'all have a good night. Thanks for being here. We'll check in again another night with this lovely story. I'm enjoying how it's unfolding. And yeah, I don't know. I'm never really good at wrapping these things up, but we're wrapping it up, okay? Good night, y'all. Take care. See you around. I won't give you a baby. I don't want one of your babies. What? I won't give you a baby. I don't want one of your babies. You want me to have one of your babies more than I want to have one of yours. Are you crazy? Crazy. I have never interacted with people who talk more about making babies than y'all do. You're obsessed with it. Goodness. That's what we're ending on? No.